I'm going to show you how to take out a seam that you have sewn. Sometimes you will sew things incorrectly. It happens to everybody, no matter how much experience you do have. So one way is to use a seam ripper. Basically, you've got the point here that picks out the individual stitches. You've got this bottom part right here, this little loopy part that is also a blade inside that also tears stitches. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is start at one end. Now I'm going to actually pick a couple of stitches from right here. Okay, and kind of to get under them. Okay, so once you pick a couple of them, kind of open there. Now this little knotted area where I backstitch is going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, but once you get a couple of the stitches, then what you're going to do is pull the seam kind of open. You can see how I've kind of started there, and at this point you're going to work from the inside of the seam. Okay, I'm going to put my seam ripper up under those stitches just like that, and use that inside the seam ripper to rip those seams, those threads apart. Okay, so once you get into the meat of your seam that doesn't have the back stitching, it's a little easier. Okay, so I just kind of tug a little bit, then I stick my seam ripper under there, under the threads, and continue on. Okay, under the threads, and continue on. Okay, under the threads and continue on. Now at this point, I mean, you don't want to just start ripping your fabric, your threads apart, even if you are that frustrated. You do risk tearing your fabric. Another thing you don't want to do is to come in from the bottom and just start going, you know, all because you're going to rip your fabric again. So you can either work, you know, coming from that way, you can work your way down. Okay, it's the same thing. Under the stitches, tug a little bit. Under the stitches, tug a little bit, and so forth. It's going to keep going. It does take a while sometimes. Depends on how big your stitches are. If you made a mistake on a small stitch length, you're going to regret the decision to use a small stitch length. Okay, so just pick under, tear that thread, and then pull a little bit. Now when I'm pulling, I'm not doing a lot of pressure there. Okay, eventually you'll get your way through that seam and it'll be done.